If you breach a bank vault and leave a single fingerprint, you are careless. If you drop a weapon during the extraction, you are desperate. But if you leave exactly 120 pieces of physical evidence at a crime scene, in broad daylight, in front of 4 unblindfolded eyewitnesses, basic criminological logic dictates you will be in handcuffs before the sun sets. The system will crush you. The forensic machine will process your mistakes, catalog your DNA, trace your purchasing history, and lock you inside a concrete cell. On the morning of December 10, 1968, a lone individual did exactly that. He executed the largest cash heist in the history of Japan. He left behind a customized motorcycle. He left behind a white police helmet. He left behind a battery-operated megaphone. He left behind magnetic compasses, copper wire, a torn newspaper, and an ignited smoke flare. He abandoned a mountain of physical data so massive that the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department assumed they were dealing with an amateur who had cracked under the psychological pressure of the theft. They were wrong. They were staring blindly at a carefully engineered optical illusion. This was not a robbery. This was a systematic humiliation of the most disciplined, methodical law enforcement apparatus on the planet. A masterclass in reverse engineering the investigative machine, feeding it poisoned data until it choked to death on its own paranoia. Let us examine the mechanical precision of the breach. December 10, 1968. 9:20 a.m. Fuchu, Tokyo. The rain is pouring heavily, washing the asphalt clean. A black Nissan Cedric transport vehicle belongs to the Kokubunji branch of the Nippon Trust Bank. Inside the cabin, 4 bank employees. Inside the trunk, 3 heavy duralumin metal boxes containing exactly 294,307,500 yen. These are the physical bonus payouts for the factory workers at the Toshiba plant. The vehicle is moving past the high concrete walls of Fuchu Prison, a highly secure geographic sector. In the rearview mirror, a lone police motorcycle rapidly approaches. A white Yamaha 250cc. The rider is wearing a standard-issue dark blue raincoat and a white helmet. He aggressively signals the Nissan Cedric to pull over to the side of the road. The bank manager complies immediately. In Japanese society, a uniform commands absolute obedience. Authority is not questioned. It is accepted as absolute truth. The officer approaches the driver's side window. His demeanor is cold, urgent, highly professional. He delivers a precise, devastating packet of information. The bank manager's branch office has just been destroyed by dynamite. And the police have received credible intelligence that a secondary explosive device has been magnetically attached under the chassis of this exact transport vehicle. Panic instantly overrides security protocols. The 4 employees evacuate the Nissan. The officer drops to the wet pavement and crawls underneath the steel frame of the vehicle. Seconds later, a bright flash illuminates the shadows, followed by thick white smoke billowing aggressively from under the engine block. The officer screams that the dynamite is about to detonate. The 4 employees sprint for their lives, taking cover behind the prison walls. When they finally dare to look back through the rain, the officer is sitting calmly in the driver's seat of the Nissan Cedric. He puts the heavy vehicle in gear. He accelerates away down the wet asphalt, the engine roaring into the distance. The employees stand in the freezing rain, feeling an overwhelming wave of gratitude. They truly believe a brave Tokyo police officer has just sacrificed himself, driving a live bomb away from a civilian zone to save their lives. It takes them exactly 3 minutes of standing in the cold to realize they have just handed over 300 million yen to a ghost. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department is activated. The systemic response is swift and confident. The parameters seem incredibly narrow. A stolen transport car. A highly specific amount of untraceable cash. 4 direct eyewitnesses. And a crime scene literally littered with physical clues. Investigators arrive at the Fuchu Prison wall. They confidently catalog the abandoned Yamaha 250cc. They document the megaphone attached to the handlebars with cheap tape. They recover the source of the smoke, not a military-grade explosive, but a standard civilian emergency warning flare, casually wrapped in a piece of newspaper. The forensic teams map the entire street grid. They collect 120 individual items left by the suspect. The lead detectives smile in the rain. Criminals who leave this much physical evidence simply do not survive the week. The dragnet is cast across Tokyo. The city borders are monitored. The ports are sealed. The machine begins to process the breadcrumbs. But the machine does not realize it is swallowing broken glass. Let us dissect the anatomy of the forensic evidence. The police trace the chassis number of the Yamaha motorcycle. It is not a police interceptor. It is a stolen civilian bike, meticulously painted white to mimic the standard issue. The megaphone. A cheap commercially available model. The smoke flare. Standard automotive emergency equipment found in the trunk of half the cars in the city. Every single item in the 120-piece forensic catalog shares one lethal characteristic. Mass production. The mastermind did not leave behind personalized, unique clues. He left behind a perfectly constructed maze of dead ends. Detectives track the origin of a specific piece of copper wire found at the scene. It leads them directly to a manufacturing plant that produces millions of identical wires distributed across thousands of hardware stores nationwide. They track the newspaper used to wrap the flare. It is a common morning edition, sold to hundreds of thousands of anonymous commuters that exact day. The investigative machine begins to spin its wheels in the mud. Tens of thousands of man-hours are burned tracing a specific brand of magnetic compass, only to find it was sold in bulk in discount bins across Tokyo for years. This was the true genius of the trap. The suspect did not attempt to sanitize the crime scene. He purposefully contaminated it with irrelevant, untraceable noise. He deeply understood the fundamental psychological flaw of the detective's brain, the uncontrollable compulsion to follow every single lead. By leaving 120 items, he successfully forced the police department to split their finite resources 120 different ways. He weaponized their own rigorous thoroughness against them. The initial arrogance of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police slowly metastasizes into a crushing, suffocating paranoia. The 4 eyewitnesses are brought into the interrogation room. They provide a facial description. A forensic composite sketch is drawn. A young man, thick hair, sharp facial features. Millions of copies of this sketch are printed. They are plastered on every train station, every utility pole, every storefront in Japan. The face of the phantom suspect becomes the most recognized image in the entire nation. The system believes this composite sketch is their ultimate weapon. It will actually become the instrument of their total destruction. The human memory is not a solid-state drive. It is a highly volatile, highly malleable biological construct. It is deeply susceptible to external suggestion. By plastering that specific facial composite sketch across every street corner in the country, the police department made a catastrophic operational error. They inadvertently overwrote the raw, original visual data stored in the minds of the 4 eyewitnesses. The witnesses were repeatedly exposed to the sketch during interrogations. Slowly, their brains accepted the drawing as the absolute truth. They stopped remembering the actual face they saw in the rain. They only remembered the poster. The investigation was no longer hunting a physical human being. They were deploying the full might of the state to hunt a 2-dimensional phantom. And the scale of that hunt was terrifying. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department initiated the largest, most expensive criminal dragnet in the history of human law enforcement. The numbers are staggering. They deployed 170,000 police officers. They established thousands of roadblocks. They systematically interrogated 110,000 individual suspects across the country. They physically searched over 118,000 locations. The investigative machine consumed an astronomical amount of financial resources. To recover the stolen 300 million yen, the Japanese government spent exactly 900 million yen. They burned 3 times the value of the stolen asset just printing posters, paying overtime logistics, and chasing shadows through the Tokyo underground. The system began to cannibalize itself. Paranoia infected the civilian population. Citizens began reporting their neighbors. Friends betrayed friends over minor behavioral anomalies. The pressure to close the case from the upper echelons of the government became suffocating. The detectives grew desperate. Desperation breeds critical tactical errors. They focused their crosshairs on a 19-year-old boy. He had no criminal record for robbery, but he possessed a local reputation for juvenile delinquency. More importantly, he vaguely resembled the Phantom sketch. He was also the son of a prominent local police officer. The detectives applied maximum psychological pressure. They interrogated him relentlessly. The boy maintained his absolute innocence. But the crushing weight of the state apparatus was too heavy for a teenager to bear. Days after his interrogation, the 19-year-old boy purchased a lethal dose of potassium cyanide. He consumed it. He died instantly. Months later, forensic analysis and airtight alibis definitively proved his absolute innocence. The system had drawn innocent blood. The 170,000-man army had been driven so deeply into madness by a thief who never fired a single bullet that they essentially executed one of their own children. The mastermind watched all of this unfold from the shadows. Complete silence. Absolute operational discipline. Years bled into one another. The 120 pieces of physical evidence degraded in the police archives. The leads evaporated. The task force was systematically downsized. And all the while, a silent, invisible clock was continuously ticking in the background. In the Japanese legal system, the statute of limitations for the crime of robbery is exactly 7 years. December 10, 1975. 12:00 a.m. The clock strikes 0. The legal window violently slams shut. At this exact second, the mastermind officially becomes an untouchable entity. Even if he confidently walked through the front doors of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Headquarters the very next morning, placed the empty duralumin boxes on the chief's desk, and signed a full video confession, the police possessed zero legal authority to put him in handcuffs. The state had surrendered. By 1988, the 20-year statute of limitations for civil liability also expired. He was no longer legally required to repay the stolen funds. He was entirely, unconditionally free. But the final, most agonizing irony of the 300 million yen heist lies in the physical cash itself. The stolen amount was entirely composed of 500 yen notes. The serial numbers of these specific bills had been meticulously recorded by the bank prior to the transport. Those serial numbers were distributed to every single bank teller, cashier, and financial institution across the Japanese archipelago. The police waited patiently. They assumed the thief would eventually get greedy. They assumed he would make a mistake and spend a single bill. He never did. In over half a century, not a single one of those 500 yen notes has ever entered physical circulation. We do not know if he systematically laundered the cash through an untraceable international jurisdiction. We do not know if he destroyed the money out of pure psychological satisfaction. But the data suggests a much colder reality. The mastermind did not execute this operation for the financial payout. The 300 million yen was merely a prop. He initiated a slow-drip psychological conditioning campaign months prior by mailing fake bomb threats to the bank manager. He pre-installed the fear of explosives in the victim's subconscious. Then, using nothing but a cheap flare, a stolen Yamaha, and a deep understanding of societal obedience, he triggered that fear. He proved that no steel vault, no armed transport, and no military-grade security protocol is effective if the human mind guarding it can be hijacked by a piece of fabric. He proved that authority is an illusion. He didn't just steal 300 million yen. He stole the dignity, the credibility, and the absolute power of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department. He crushed them. And then he vanished into the rain, leaving the system to rot in the prison of its own humiliation.